What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today,
you read the title, you know what time it is. It's time to go over the top 5 must-own rookies for 2021. Each and every season, there are a handful of rookies that completely pop off for fantasy. Even looking back as recent as last season, we had names like Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, both finishing inside the top 10 for fantasy. And while those were the top performing rookies for 2020, we cannot let that overshadow very successful seasons we saw from players like Chase Claypool, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, DeAndre Swift, just to name a few. I think we all can agree that the bar that's set for these incoming rookies is the highest we've ever seen it. In today's video, we'll be going over the top rookies that you should be targeting in fantasy drafts. Before we do, stat of the day. Today's stat of the day, we're sticking with the rookie theme, but we're talking tight ends. Today's question is, which rookie tight end currently holds the record for the most targets in a rookie season? Once again, that's which rookie tight end currently holds the record for the most targets in a single season. Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Without further ado though, let's get into the video. As per usual, we'll start with the player on the thumbnail, none other than Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. I know a lot of you may be surprised to hear Kyle Pitts' name thrown into this hat of our top targets, and the reason being is because if you followed us for many seasons now, you know our rule of thumb is not to target rookie tight ends. One thing we all know about the tight end position in the NFL is that it has a very large learning curve. Even top prospects that have incredible athletic profiles, players that may even find themselves on some of the top offenses in the league, unlike the wide receiver position or running back positions, we really don't see that translate in year one in the NFL. Taking a look at some of the recent top prospects, we have players like Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert, and Hunter Henry. Clearly, these are 4 of the premier tight ends we have in the league, but would it surprise you guys to hear that the highest reception total out of any of these players in their rookie season was a mere 40 receptions held by Noah Fant? Believe it or not, each one of these rookie tight ends ranged between 40 to 60 targets on the entire season, and while Hunter Henry was able to reach pay dirt on 8 separate occasions on his rookie season, each one of these tight ends did fail to eclipse 600 receiving yards. Even Hunter Henry, in his outlierish performance in the receiving touchdown department, his efforts in his rookie season were only good enough to finish as the TE19 for fantasy. The reason I bring that up is because seldom times are we ever going to be on the channel recommending that you draft a rookie tight end, but when it comes to the case of Kyle Pitts, drafted by Atlanta with the 4th overall selection, this is the type of player that you really don't want to pass up on. Kyle Pitts was drafted 4th overall by the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta, as we know, one of the pass-friendliest offenses in the entire league. Not to mention, the Atlanta Falcons have been trying to fill that vacated spot of Austin Hooper. They did invest into getting Hayden Hurst on the roster, but it didn't really work out as planned. And with the Atlanta Falcons being willing to invest a 4th overall pick on an offensive skill position player, it really just goes to show you exactly how invested they are in Kyle Pitts as a talent. Realistically, I mean, how could they not be? This is a player who's 6'6", 245 pounds, who clocked a 4.44 40-yard dash time, which is in the 99th percentile. He clocks a 98th percentile speed score, 79th percentile burst score, and boasts an 85th percentile catch radius. One major difference between Kyle Pitts and some of the other tight ends that have came out of recent draft classes is that Kyle Pitts is basically a massive wide receiver. While there is a bit of a learning curve when it comes to tight ends becoming accustomed to the speed of the NFL, Kyle Pitts is going to have absolutely no issue in that area. And when it comes to how the Atlanta Falcons intend on using Kyle Pitts, they couldn't have made it any more clear. Kyle Pitts is going to be one of the primary pass catchers in Atlanta. Realistically, we couldn't have asked for a better landing spot. Atlanta, as we know, one of the worst defenses in the entire league. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the Atlanta Falcons offense will be passing the ball a ton for the 2021 season. And while terms and phrases like generational generational talent are thrown out a bit too frequently, Kyle Pitts is definitely a player to fit that mold. We cannot forget that Kyle Pitts was actually awarded the Fred Biletnikoff Award, an award that prior to Kyle Pitts was exclusively given out to wide receivers only. If that doesn't scream generational, I don't know what does. And with Hayden Hurst being a bit underwhelming last year, Julio Jones' status up in the air as well, and Calvin Ridley's health being up and down last season, Kyle Pitts, in all of his talent, couldn't have found himself on a better NFL roster. Alright guys, we're moving over to the running back position, and the next player we have is Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. One thing I think a lot of us noticed throughout this offseason was that there was a lot of mixed reporting when it came to the running backs in this year's draft class. While many of the top analysts were in an agreement that this was one of the weaker running back draft class we've seen in recent years, there was one player that a lot of people were still high on, and that player was Najee Harris. When it comes to Najee Harris, this is a player that has that size. He's 6'1", 232 pounds, a very similar build to a player like Melvin Gordon, and definitely versatile like Melvin Gordon as well. Throughout 4 years in Alabama, this was a player who had 638 totes on the ground, rushed for nearly 4,000 yards, and we saw his work in the receiving game trending upward with each passing season. By his senior year, this was a player who was actually getting 43 receptions, posting nearly 500 receiving yards, but didn't use that as an excuse to slow up any of his production on the ground, finishing his college career with a 6 yards per carry average. I don't think anybody here is really questioning if Najee Harris really has the ability to get it done on an NFL level. The main concern with me and most everybody else out there was what is going to be his landing spot. When it comes to landing spot, I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers is really the best you could ask for. Even though Big Ben's days as an NFL starter are definitely numbered, while healthy, Big Ben can still get it done. Can he maintain and play through a 16-game season? That remains to be determined. But one thing we all have to be in agreement with is that this is a team that operates with a very strong defense. Last season, we saw through the final few games of the season, Big Ben's arm just fall completely out from under him. And with that information, you know that heading into this season, the coaching staff is going to come into the year knowing that they have to have even more of an emphasis on defense and a strong running game. Had this team had more money to play around with in free agency, I definitely believe they would have been in the market for one of these top free agents, which is why I'm not surprised whatsoever that they invested heavy draft capital into Najee Harris. With Harris not only being one of the top prospects, but a versatile one at that, and the depth chart behind him with names like Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, and Kalen Ballage, there is no doubt in my mind that Najee Harris is not only going to be the primary rusher in this offense, but he's likely to get first crack at pass catching work as well. Last season, we definitely had a bit of a downswing when it came to rookie running backs. Players like DeAndre Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they did disappoint at certain times of the season, but I definitely think Najee Harris is the type of player you can draft, lock him into your lineup, and as long as he's healthy, you won't have to take him out. Last season, the closest thing we had to that was Jonathan Taylor, but as we know, this was definitely a player that was trending upward more towards the second half of last season. Najee Harris, he's a bit of a different case. I think you could start him as early as week 1, and barring injury, you'll never have to take him out of your lineup. Currently, he's coming off the board as the RB17. We have him just a few spots higher than that, just outside the top 12 at running backs, but this is definitely a player I could see a lot of people rising on depending on how he looks in preseason. Alright guys, we're moving over to the wide receiver position, and the next player we have is none other than DeVonta Smith. When it comes to DeVonta Smith, this one's pretty simple. DeVonta Smith finds himself on one of the most wide receiver needy teams with heavy draft capital invested in him. As we know, the Philadelphia Eagles are going through a bit of a transitional period where they're moving away from Carson Wentz, giving the shot over to Jalen Hurts. And although Jalen Hurts did show flashes in 2020, enough for the team to feel confident in letting go of Carson Wentz, regardless, one thing we all can agree is that this team desperately needs more weapons in the passing attack. Yes, they currently have Zach Ertz, who's rumored to be released, and Dallas Goedert is going to serve as basically a wide receiver in the tight end role. But when it comes to the other receivers on this team, Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward, and Whiteside, it's undeniable that this team is lacking a bit of high-end talent. That's exactly where DeVonta Smith comes in. Smith drafted with the 10th overall pick in the 2021 draft. He is a bit undersized, coming in at 6 foot 170 pounds. But don't get it mistaken, that's not what he was drafted for. DeVonta Smith was drafted for his route running ability, his versatility playing from both the outside as well as the slot, his proven ability to compete with any of the top corners, and his natural hands as seen by his extremely low drop rate. One thing the Philadelphia Eagles need the most is a consistent producer, somebody that you know, if targeted correctly, is going to come down with the ball, somebody who can get separation, get open, who you can rely on third down. And while Jalen Reagor was rumored and was supposed to be that in the 2020 season, DeVonta Smith seemingly is the whole package. DeVonta Smith has big playability, and in the NFC East, where there are offenses like the Dallas Cowboys offense, Washington and New York Giants are also offenses presumably trending up as well. And with Philadelphia likely competing for third or fourth offensively in this division, they're going to need as many playmakers as they can get. There is a ton of pressure for Jalen Hurts to step up this upcoming season, and with the team not having money to go after some of these top free agents in the wide receiver market, having the ability to get a top 10 prospect like DeVonta Smith on the roster is definitely going to help some of the growing pains of Jalen Hurts. One thing Smith definitely has going for him from a fantasy perspective is that this defense is going to be pretty bad. The Philadelphia Eagles in the third and fourth quarter are going to have plenty of passing production, and with a player like DeVonta Smith who has massive big playability, I wouldn't be surprised to see many weeks of DeVonta Smith posting a lot of his production in garbage time scenarios. As we know, garbage time points count just as much as any other points, and DeVonta Smith is going to be heading into the 2021 season, likely leading all rookies in that area. Alright guys, we're bouncing back to running back, and we're going over the final player on today's list, none other than Javonte Williams. Throughout this offseason, I've been personally very outspoken on how high I've been on the Denver Broncos offense, taking a step forward from 2020 to 2021, with Courtland Sutton set to make a return, talented receivers like Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, and KJ Hamler to go along with Courtland Sutton and Noah Fant. Quite frankly, this team is no short of weapons. When Melvin Gordon was going to be the primary running back in this offense, I was definitely high on him, but with Melvin Gordon now likely to be splitting carries with Javonte Williams, who they did invest pretty significant draft capital into, we're talking a top second round pick. Those are the type of moves that really make a statement, and with Melvin Gordon having offseason difficulties himself stemming from a DUI and potential suspension talk, Philip Lindsay also vacated from the team, the Denver Broncos could not have made it any more clear that lead back duties are definitely up for grabs. Melvin Gordon will undoubtedly get first crack at that, but if there were any running back to go ahead and step in and potentially supplant Melvin Gordon, who's been playing a bit up and down since landing in Denver, Javonte Williams is definitely that guy. This is a player who's known to be more of a bruiser, a power back, but more versatile. This is the type of guy to not get taken down by arm tackles, but also the same guy to run a wheel route, get you receptions on third down, and be the guy to also get you those nitty-gritty yards on fourth and short. While a lot of the same could be said for a young Melvin Gordon earlier in his career, but from what we've seen from Melvin Gordon over the past 2 seasons, it really makes you wonder exactly how much more gas he has left in the tank. When it comes to these running backs in crowded backfields, we typically like to opt to draft the player who's a better value on draft day. And with Melvin Gordon coming in as a borderline top 20 pick, and with Javonte Williams being drafted just inside the top 40, it almost seems like the decision is made for me. It's tough to make a case for Melvin Gordon to take a step forward, especially with this new added competition for touches and targets in this backfield. And Gordon was already a player who in 2020 had 7 different games in which he was held to 10 or fewer fantasy points. Regardless of if I'm starting him as my RB2 or even flex, if you're scoring single-digit fantasy points in a PPR league, I'm going to need to look for better options. With the Denver Broncos offense opting to give a shot to some of their newer players, a la Teddy Bridgewater, Javonte Williams, if you're telling me I can get a draft day discount by about 20 positional draft spots and still end up leaving the draft with what's likely going to be the lead back in that offense, that's a win any way you look at it. But guys, let us know who your top rookie targets are for this upcoming season. That's going to do it for this video. We really hope you enjoyed. If you did, How about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.